The air inside Titan's primary mining hub was thick with the acrid scent of machinery and desperation. Jax Valter leaned against a rusted console, his steel blue eyes scanning the latest production reports. The numbers didn't add up, again. The Vorik's demands were pushing the colony to its limits. Foreman Valter, a grating voice interrupted. Jax turned to face Overseer Krall, a towering Vorik with a sneer that could curdle milk. We noticed your output dropped by 12% this cycle, Krall hissed, his voice like grinding metal. Unacceptable. You will triple production by next week, or face consequences. Jax clenched his fists. We're already working double shifts. Any more, and you'll have dead miners, not increased output. Krall's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps we'll find a species better suited for obedience. Jax bit back a retort, knowing that defiance would mean lashes, or worse, for the workers under his charge. As Krall stormed off, Jax's comm device buzzed. A voice crackled through the static. Jax, you need to see this. Sub-level 3. Now. The urgency in the voice belonged to Mira, his tech-savvy second-in-command. Within minutes, Jax was descending a narrow shaft, his boots clanging against the metal rungs. When he reached the dimly lit chamber, Mira handed him a data pad. It's a Vorik transmission, she whispered. Encrypted, but I managed to pull fragments. They're planning to drain Titan dry and abandon us. Jax's stomach twisted. The Vorik hadn't just been exploiting them, they were planning a slow genocide. We need proof, he said, his voice cold but resolute. Mira nodded. I can break the full encryption, but it'll take time. Do it. And Mira, tell no one. As Jax turned to leave, he caught his reflection in a cracked monitor. Tired eyes stared back, but beneath the fatigue was something stronger, a simmering fire. For too long, humanity had endured. Too long they had bowed. Not anymore. Cliffhanger. Myra's terminal pings with a new fragment, a name, Zalvoker. And Jax knows this fight just became personal. Jax paced the cramped operations room, his boots echoing against the metal floor. The single light overhead flickered, casting erratic shadows across the room. Myra's workbench hummed as she decrypted the Vorik transmission. The tension was palpable. How long? Jax asked, breaking the silence. Myra didn't look up, her fingers flying over the terminal. Almost there. Another minute, maybe two. This encryption is Vorik military grade. Jax nodded, though his mind churned with questions. Titan was a pressure cooker, and the smallest spark could ignite a full-scale revolt. But would that spark lead to liberation, or annihilation? The terminal let out a sharp beep. Mira leaned back, wiping her forehead. Got it. She spun the screen toward Jax. The document was chilling, a detailed plan to extract every resource from Titan within 6 months, followed by a systematic abandonment of the colony. The Vorik had no intention of maintaining the human workforce. They were expendable. They're not just squeezing us, Mira said, her voice shaking. They're preparing to discard us. Like scrap metal. Jax's jaw tightened. He leaned over the console, scanning the transmission. Among the jargon and logistical data, one name stood out, Zalvoker. The High Commander himself is overseeing this, Jax muttered. This isn't just policy. It's calculated. Jax, Mira whispered. What are we going to do? For a moment, the weight of responsibility bore down on him. Then he straightened, the fire in his eyes rekindled. We fight back. But first, we need allies. That night, Jax slipped into the lower levels of the colony, where the air was heavy with the smell of oil and despair. Here, the workers gathered after grueling shifts, their faces etched with exhaustion and quiet anger. Jax found Braden, a hulking miner with arms like tree trunks and a reputation for rallying the men. Braden looked up from his drink as Jax approached. You look like a man with trouble on his mind, Braden said, his deep voice carrying a hint of amusement. It's worse than you think, Jax replied, sitting across from him. The Vorik plan to abandon Titan, after they bled it dry. We're all disposable to them. Braden's expression darkened. And you have proof? Jack slid a datapad across the table. Braden studied it, his brow furrowing. Finally, he set it down, his fists clenching. So, what's the plan, Foreman? You've always been good with plans. We rallied the colony, Jack said firmly. We hit the Vorik where it hurts, disrupt their supply lines, sabotage their infrastructure. But we do it smart. No unnecessary risks. We make them regret underestimating us. Braden leaned back, a grim smile spreading across his face. I'm in. And I know others who will be too. By dawn, whispers of rebellion spread through the colony like wildfire. In the dim light of his quarters, Jack stared at the transmission again, his resolve hardening. Humanity wouldn't go quietly. Cliffhanger, an encrypted message appears on Myra's terminal, a Vorik defector offering vital intel, but demanding a face-to-face meeting in a hostile zone. Jax's heart pounded as he crouched behind a stack of supply crates in the dimly lit Vorik hangar. The air was cold, filled with the hum of alien machinery and the distant clank of footsteps. Myra knelt beside him, her face illuminated by the faint glow of her portable hacking device. This better be worth it, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the low din. It is, Jax replied, his gaze fixed on the Vorik patrol ahead. The convoy, 4 heavy transport ships loaded with refined ore, was their first target. If they could cripple the shipment, it would send a message: humanity was no longer a silent victim. Myra tapped a few keys, and a faint green light blinked on her device. I'm in. Cameras are looping. We've got 5 minutes before someone notices. Jack signaled to Braden, who was hidden across the hangar with a group of miners-turned-fighters. The big man gave a thumbs up, hefting a makeshift explosive. The plan was simple: disrupt the Vorik's supply chain by sabotaging the convoy. But simplicity didn't mean it was easy. If they were caught, there would be no mercy. Go, Jax whispered. Braden and his team moved swiftly, placing charges beneath the transport ships. Every movement was precise, every second calculated. Jax felt a swell of pride and fear. These weren't soldiers. They were miners, engineers, and laborers, risking everything for a chance at freedom. Myra's device pinged softly. Patrols shift in 30 seconds, she warned. Braden, wrap it up, Jax hissed into his comm. Just finishing the last one, Braden replied, his voice steady despite the tension. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clang echoed through the hangar. One of the miners had tripped, sending a wrench skittering across the floor. The sound was deafening in the stillness. The Vorik patrol snapped to attention, their alien eyes scanning the area. Who's there? One barked in their guttural tongue. Jax cursed under his breath. Get out of sight! Braden's team ducked behind crates, but the patrol was moving closer. Jax motioned to Myra, who quickly pulled up a control panel on her device. I can trigger the alarms in the adjacent sector, she whispered. Do it, Jax said. A shrill alarm blared, and the patrol immediately shifted their focus, rushing toward the supposed disturbance. Now's our chance, Jax said. Braden, fall back. Myra, set the charges remotely. Braden's team retreated silently, and Myra tapped a command on her device. The explosives activated with a soft beep, their timers set. As they slipped out of the hangar, Jax felt the weight of what they'd done. It wasn't just sabotage, it was the first act of open defiance. Minutes later, a deafening explosion rocked the colony, and flames lit up the dark Titan sky. Jax watched from a safe distance, his heart pounding with both triumph and trepidation. Cliffhanger. As Jax and his team regroup, a Vorik drone hovers silently in the distance, its camera lens fixed on them. The Resistance safe house was little more than a hollowed-out storage bay, dimly lit by flickering lanterns and lined with salvaged equipment. Jax stood at the center, a map of the colony projected on the wall behind him. Around him were his key allies, Myra, Braden, and a few others who had proven themselves invaluable. But the air was heavy with tension. That drone saw everything, Braden said, his voice low but edged with worry. We're compromised. Jax ran a hand through his short, dark hair, his jaw set. They know we're organized now. That was inevitable. What matters is how we respond. They'll send reinforcements, Mira added. Probably start locking down the colony, searching for us. We need to act before they tighten the noose. Jax nodded. Agreed. But we can't keep playing defense. If we don't go after their command network, we're just buying time. Braden frowned. You're talking about hacking their orbital systems, aren't you? Yes, Jax said, his voice firm. It's the only way to disrupt their control over Titan. We take out their surveillance, comms, and resource management in one blow. Mira looked up from her terminal, a glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes. That's ambitious. Their systems are heavily encrypted. Even if I could break in, we need direct access to the relay station. Jax pointed to the map. That's why we're going to hit them here, their main relay hub in Sector 12. It's risky, but it's our best shot. If we pull this off, we'll cripple their operations for weeks, maybe longer. The room fell silent, the weight of the plan settling over everyone. Braden finally broke the silence. We've come this far. I'm in. Mira hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Me too. Let's do this. The team moved through the shadowed corridors of the colony, their movements synchronized and silent. Jax led the way, his mind a storm of focus and determination. Ahead, the relay station loomed, a fortified structure guarded by Vorik soldiers and automated turrets. Mira, are you ready? Jax whispered. She nodded, clutching her hacking device. Ready as I'll ever be. Braden, take your team to the west entrance. Draw their attention. Mira and I will enter through the maintenance hatch. Braden grinned. Got it. Let's give them something to remember. As Braden's team caused a commotion, Jax and Mira slipped into the hatch, navigating the narrow passageways with practiced ease. The hum of alien technology grew louder as they approached the central console. Mira quickly connected her device, her fingers dancing across the interface. I'm in. Just need a few minutes. Outside, the sound of gunfire and explosions echoed, a constant reminder of the stakes. Hurry, Mira, Jax urged. I'm almost there, wait, she said, her eyes widening. They're rerouting. They know we're here. Jax gritted his teeth. Then we finish this now. Can you trigger a system-wide overload? Mira hesitated. It'll fry their systems, but it'll also put us in the blast zone. Jax's eyes hardened. Do it. We don't get another chance. Moments later, alarms blared, and the station's lights flickered. Mira pulled the last cable and nodded. Done! Let's move! As they fled, the relay station erupted in a cascade of sparks and fire, the explosion shaking the ground beneath their feet. Cliffhanger, Jax's calm buzzes, a Vorik voice, cold and calculated, speaks. You're impressive, human. But this is far from over. The air was heavy with smoke and tension as Jax and Mira sprinted through the labyrinthine corridors of the colony, the echo of the relay station's explosions still reverberating in their ears. Their calm buzzed with Braden's voice. Jax, we're falling back to the safe house. Vorik reinforcements are everywhere. Understood, Jax replied, his breath ragged. Hold your position. We'll regroup soon. Mira glanced at him as they ducked into a maintenance shaft. That voice on the comm earlier, Volker, wasn't it? He knows who you are now. Jax's jaw tightened. Let him know. It's time they understand what humanity is capable of. They reached the safe house minutes later, where Braden's team was already patching up injuries and reloading their makeshift weapons. The air was thick with grim determination. Good to see you alive, Braden said, clapping Jax on the shoulder. But we've got a problem. Vorik troops are locking down the colony. They're rounding up civilians, probably looking for us. Jax cursed under his breath. We can't let them take innocent people as leverage. Mira was already scanning Vorik comms on her terminal. There's a central holding area in Sector 4. They're moving everyone there. If we act fast, we can intercept them. Braden frowned. You're talking about a direct assault. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Jax's eyes burned with resolve. Then we even the odds. Mira, can you disable their energy shields? She hesitated, then nodded. If I can tap into their systems, I can shut down the shields for a few minutes. But it's a narrow window. Jax turned to the group, his voice steady and commanding. This is it. If we free those civilians, we'll turn them into allies. The Vorik think fear will keep us in line, but we'll show them what happens when humanity fights back. The assault on Sector 4 was swift and brutal. Jax led the charge, his team moving with a precision that belied their ragtag origins. Mira stayed close, her hacking device slung over her shoulder as she worked to disable the Vorik defenses. Shields down, she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. Braden and his fighters surged forward, their improvised weapons wreaking havoc on the alien guards. Civilians, initially cowering in fear, began to join the fray, emboldened by the Resistance's audacity. Jax fought with everything he had, his fists and makeshift blade a blur as he took down Vorik soldiers. Around him, the tide was turning, humanity's raw determination proving more powerful than the Vorik's advanced technology. Jax! Mira shouted. Reinforcements incoming! He turned to see a squad of Vorik soldiers advancing, their weapons glowing ominously. But before they could fire, a deafening roar filled the air. A stolen Vorik transport crashed into the ground, scattering the enemy forces. Braden stepped out, a victorious grin on his face. Thought you could use some backup. By dawn, the holding area was theirs. The Vorik had retreated, and the liberated civilians were cheering. Jax stood at the center, battered but unbroken. This isn't just about Titan, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. This is about humanity. We've shown them we won't be broken. Now we take the fight to them. Final scene. A Vorik command ship looms in orbit, its commander glaring at a tactical display. Humanity is more dangerous than we anticipated, Zalvoker mutters. This war has only begun.